I want to switch over and Jason, give you an opportunity to discuss what you've done and your journey along the way.
Yeah, ours is a little different. We haven't been, I'll say, customer service centric from that perspective to begin with. For us, we've got a very flat management structure and organizational structure above the, I guess, the warehouse operations and distribution operations. So for us, it was more about how do we do more with the same. So what we focused on, we started very small. We started focusing on manual processes today that the CFO, COO, financial controllers, some of those sorts of people spend. I'll say in hindsight, extraordinary amounts of time consolidating data sets, etc. So, we run multiple systems, a little different, but similar. We have NetSuite, obviously. We have StockIQ, and we have FastScore as our WMS. So, very disparate systems from a data integration perspective that traditionally the business would manually manipulate data to produce, a decision point, right? The data required for a decision point. So our focus has been really on using Celigo and using a number of AI tools, fit for purpose is probably the best way to put it, to help make those decisions much quicker. So how do we get the data in the right hands in the timely fashion so they can make a decision, as opposed to spend too much time doing the manual manipulation of data and interpretation. So again, we started very similar, I guess, to Andrea. I know we had some other conversations, but we started very small to begin with as a proof of concept, prove the value from that perspective. We're a little different. We haven't referred to it as an AI solution. It's truly a business process solution. We just happen to use AI along the way. If you asked, perhaps this is bad for Celigo, but if you asked 80 or 90% of our team, they wouldn't know Celigo. They wouldn't know what Celigo does, but it's integral for the architecture beneath to give them the data to make the decisions. So I think from that perspective, that's how I guess implement it, very business centric.
Delivering those finalized functioning business solutions and keeping that infrastructure, so to speak, that integration and automation and AI infrastructure separate from the end business user, sounds like.
Yeah, and we're truly converting hours of man hours each week from a, whether it be accounts receivable perspective, a back order perspective, a forecasting, etc., and transitioning that to, quite frankly, a minute or maybe two, right, from that. And then the decisions can then be about how do we overcome the business challenge, or what actions do we take, as opposed to spending a majority of the time working out the data. And I think that's certainly changed it. We've been a victim of our own success. We had to push the business on AI to look for those low-hanging fruit. I think my pipeline now is about 27 different opportunities within the business. So we're now working on how do we enable the business within guardrails from a security perspective, a compliance perspective, and a data integrity. But we're starting to work closely with the business as to how do they self-serve more or come to us with a more complete business requirement as opposed to a whiteboard sketch.
But it sounds like there's been a significant shift, though, in that at first you had to push on the businesses, on the departments, and now they're coming. They're saying, "Hey, can you do this? Can you automate this?" That there's definitely been a shift in their mindset as they've seen success, right?
Yeah, and we're even using the Celigo agent module, which is, I know, in beta at the moment. We've started to use that to help us develop the business requirements, to start to vet and identify return on investment. So we've got a number of different agents built to help, articulate the business case so that it becomes more achievable, because we're a very small IT team here. We're not unique, to a lot of medium-sized enterprises. There's a handful of us. So it's really about how fast can we deliver a result. So we have a bit of a mandate, an internal mandate, that if we can't deliver something in 2 days, we need to rethink how we do it. And then becomes a continual improvement. So, our first product that we developed a few months back now is a very different product, far more complicated, far more proactive with regards to back orders. And we now track shipments from overseas, etc. We start to do doc scheduling, etc., all from a single app, which historically was, 6 different spreadsheets and different processes and teams and Slack channels and all those sorts of things. It's now a consolidated interface. So, again, I think it's exciting. I think it's, the key message I tell everybody is, just keep pushing the envelope. Just look for those wins. They're everywhere. We try not to overcomplicate I used the term the other day, we try not to bore the ocean. For us, it's truly about how do we build the momentum, get the cadence, and success will breed success.
Fantastic. That's a great story. And what really jumped out for me is the fact that, I mean, you said a couple days that you're not delivering the initial version of these solutions in weeks or months, but you're at this point you're delivering them in a couple days, right?
Yeah, in one or two occasions, we've done it in 2 to 3 hours of work, right? So minimum viable product, does this achieve the desired outcome if we develop it fully out? And if so, great, we keep going. If not, then we bench it. If AI is not capable, or we don't have the data set, or the quality is not there, we will bench it. We have a backlog of opportunities, and then we'll revisit on a monthly basis.
That's awesome. That kind of speed and driving value that quickly, that's absolutely fantastic. Now, you touched on a little bit of some of the solutions that you've implemented. You mind kind of sharing a little bit more detail about what problems you've solved with these automation solutions, leveraging AI, and just give the audience a little more of kind of the what you've done to give them a sense of the possibilities out there.
Yeah, we're a little different. So clips and fasteners, we deliver it in 3 different ways. So we have bulk, we have kits, and we have assemblies, right? So like including private labels. So for us, we see a back order. NetSuite in its native inventory will say that a particular product's out of stock. Now, in fact, it will be out of stock in the baseline of the bulk item that we would typically make, the end product, but it may exist out on the floor in a different format, whether it be in a box for a different customer, whether it be in a different kit, those sorts of things. So for us, it was really about how do we improve our on-time delivery and item fulfillment, right, as key drivers. And that was, I guess, instilled in a handful of people on the warehouse floor who have been here for 20 plus years. They knew that for a particular product, they could go and get it and pull it off the widget. Now, the challenge there is that we're owned by a private equity. We're on a target of double in 5 years. That becomes, it's not scalable, right, to rely on the same 3 or 4 people, from a month-to-month basis. So we've now enabled the warehouse director literally on a dashboard every day can see the orders, see when it's due to be delivered in terms of to the customer, when the base product is due from a shipment perspective. We get the latest updates every day from our contracted 3PL partners. And then from that perspective, they can make a decision. We're even now starting to estimate the labor involved in repackaging and whether the return on investment is there. And that's all AI generated. So it's pulling it from 3 different systems. It's presenting it back in a single interface. And now we've trained it to start to make recommendations. So, this morning there was 27 SKUs that he was able to pull off the floor. He pulled, I think, 18 of the 27 in the end because of the return on investment was there. And they were from some key strategic customers as an example. And then probably the next one is accounts receivable dashboard. That's a recent one for us. At the minute, our financial controller would break it down and then assign it to customer service. That's now fully automated. So we do an upload from NetSuite. It comes through the Celigo interface. We have customer service reps assigned, along with account managers assigned for strategic accounts. And they now have a dashboard that they can see in real time and insert notes, et cetera, that writes back to NetSuite based on actions taken, commitments for payment, those sorts of things. So again, in that scenario, our financial controller was spending 4 to 6 hours a week doing it. It now does it automatically, and he does a review to make sure that the data is consistent. We've got no erroneous data, but that'll even disappear over time once confidence is there. As I said, we implemented it 2 weeks ago, right? So we are truly moving really quick. And they've come back today with some enhancements they'd like to see for one of our subsidiaries that we own and implementing it there. So again, it's not rocket science from my perspective. It's truly just sitting down with a business, understanding a business problem, and how can we use technology as it is now, particularly with AI, but also with Celigo as the interface between the different systems to give a great business outcome.